The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that orbited the golden planet below. Inside, beings from 47 different worlds sat in their designated seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as clouds of gas contained in special suits. They had gathered for one purpose: to decide what to do about humanity. High Chancellor Vreth stood at the center of the chamber. His reptilian skin gleamed under the artificial lights as he addressed the assembly. His voice carried the weight of authority that came from ruling the galaxy for 300 years. The humans refused to obey, Vreth said, his forked tongue flicking between his teeth. They build weapons when we tell them to stop. They expand their colonies when we tell them to wait. They disrespect traditions that are older than their entire civilization. Ambassador Jiwan sat in the human section, a small booth near the back. She was alone, as Earth had only one representative allowed in the council. She listened to Vreth's words and felt her jaw tighten. Around her, other species whispered to each other, pointing at her occasionally. Humanity discovered faster than light travel only 30 years ago, continued another counselor, a being made of crystal that sparkled when it spoke. They are children playing with tools they do not understand. They must be controlled before they hurt themselves or others. G1 stood up. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to her. She was small compared to most beings in the room, but she held her head high. "We are not children," she said clearly. "We are a sovereign species. We have the right to defend ourselves and make our own choices." Vreth's laugh echoed through the chamber. It was a cold, mocking sound. "Rights? You speak of rights? The Galactic Council determines rights. We have maintained peace in this galaxy for millennia. Every species must follow our laws." "Your laws," G1 replied, "or your control." A murmur spread through the assembly. Some species looked shocked that a human would speak so boldly. Others seemed interested, leaning forward in their seats. Vreth's eyes narrowed. "You test our patience, human. Your species has been granted the privilege of space travel. Do not make us regret allowing you to keep it." "You did not allow us anything," G1 said. "We earned it through our own work, our own intelligence, and our own determination." "Enough." Vreth slammed his clawed hand on the podium. "The council will vote. All in favor of enforcing compliance through military action. Signal now." One by one, lights appeared across the chamber. Green lights meant yes. Red lights meant no. G1 watched as green light after green light flickered on. Her heart sank. When the count finished, 43 species had voted yes. Only 4 had voted no. "The decision is made," Vreth announced. "A peacekeeping fleet will blockade the human home system. If Earth does not surrender its military forces within 1 standard month, we will disable their orbital platforms and destroy their warships." "This is mercy. We could simply eliminate them." G1 felt cold. She had known this might happen, but hearing it made real was different. She looked around the chamber at all these alien faces. Some looked satisfied. Others looked indifferent. None looked sympathetic. "You are making a mistake," she said quietly. "No," Vreth replied. "Your species made the mistake by defying us. Now you will learn what happens to those who refuse to submit." The session ended, and the various species began filing out of the chamber. G1 remained seated, her mind racing. She needed to warn Earth. She needed to tell them what was coming. A small figure approached her booth. It was Counselor Nethys, a being covered in soft blue fur with large, sad eyes. Nethys was from one of the 4 species that had voted no. "I am sorry," Nethys said softly. "My people know what it is like to lose freedom. The Council forced us to give up our weapons 200 years ago. We have regretted it ever since." "Then why don't you fight back?" G1 asked. Nethys looked away. "Because we are afraid. The Council's power is absolute. No one has successfully resisted them in 1,000 years. There is always a first time," G1 said. Nethys touched G1's hand gently. "Be careful, Ambassador. The Council does not tolerate defiance. They will crush your species if you resist." "Let them try," G1 said. She left the chamber and headed to the communications center. She had diplomatic clearance to send messages to Earth, though she knew the Council monitored everything. She did not care. They already knew what they were going to do. Now Earth needed to know too. In the small communications booth, G1 typed out her message. She kept it brief and used codes that only Earth's military would understand. When she finished, she stared at the screen for a moment before pressing send. The message was simple. "They're coming. They think we'll break. Show them who we are. Across the galaxy on Earth, Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the EDF Indomitable. The ship was humanity's largest warship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and armor. He had been expecting Jiwon's message, but reading it still made his blood run cold. "Sir?" His second-in-command, Taeyang, stood beside him. "What are our orders?" Hyunwoo looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. He had fought in the First Contact Wars when humanity first met hostile alien species. He had seen good people die. He had made hard choices. Now he would have to make more. "Alert all defensive fleets," he said calmly. "Every ship, every station, every pilot. Tell them to prepare for war." "Against the entire Galactic Council?" Taeyang asked, his voice uncertain. "Against anyone who tries to take our freedom," Hyunwoo replied. Taeyang nodded and moved to carry out the orders. Hyunwoo remained at the window, staring at the infinite darkness. He thought about Earth spinning peacefully in space, unaware that its existence was threatened. He thought about the billions of humans who trusted their military to protect them. The Council thought humanity would surrender. They thought humans were primitives who would be frightened by a show of force. They had studied human history and seen how often humans fought each other, how divided they could be. They believed that fear would make humans comply. They were wrong. Hyunwoo had read the reports about the Council's military power. He knew the odds. Humanity had perhaps 36 modern warships. The Council could field thousands. It was not a fair fight. It was not even close to fair. But Hyunwoo also knew something the Council did not understand. He knew that humans had spent their entire existence fighting against impossible odds. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed other species. They had climbed from caves to the stars through pure stubborn determination. The Council was about to learn a hard lesson. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their ships. It was their refusal to give up, no matter the cost. Hyunwoo smiled grimly at his reflection in the window. "Come on, then," he whispered to the stars. "Let's see who breaks first." Behind him, the bridge crew worked frantically, preparing for the coming storm. Alerts went out across the solar system. Ships powered up their weapons. Soldiers reported to their stations. Families said goodbye to their loved ones, not knowing if they would see each other again. Earth was going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks had passed since the Council's ultimatum. Now at the edge of Earth's solar system, space rippled and tore open. One by one, warships emerged from hyperspace. They kept coming more and more, until 200 vessels hung in the darkness like a swarm of metal locusts. Admiral Vrax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. He was Karathi, a species that had conquered 17 worlds before joining the Council. His forearms crossed over his armored chest as he surveyed the human home system through the view screen. "Pathetic," he muttered. "They have barely colonized their own planets." His tactical officer, a thin creature with too many eyes, nodded. "Scans show only 37 human warships in the system, Admiral. They are gathering near their 4th planet." "Jupiter," Vrax said, reading the human name from his display. "They hide behind a gas giant like frightened children." He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the humans. Let me speak to whoever commands them." Moments later, Captain Hyunwoo's face appeared on the screen. He was human average in appearance, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples and eyes that showed no fear. He wore a simple military uniform with the Earth Defense Force insignia on his chest. "I am Admiral Vrax of the Galactic Council Fleet," Vrax announced. "You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender your vessels immediately, and we will allow your people to live as subjects of the Council." Hyunwoo stared back at him without expression. "This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our solar system without permission. Leave now or we will defend our home." Vrax laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Defend? With 37 ships against my 200? You are either brave or stupid, human." "We're about to find out which," Hyunwoo said and closed the channel. Vrax's laughter died. The audacity of these primitives shocked him. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Deploy attack formations. We will crush them quickly and move on to their homeworld." On the Indomitable, Hyunwoo turned to his crew. "All ships engage the enemy. Execute pattern Delta 7. "Sir," Lieutenant Sungmi said nervously from her station, "Delta 7 is extremely dangerous. The G-forces could—" "I know what it could do," Hyunwoo interrupted. "Trust me, Lieutenant. And trust yourself." The human fleet split apart, each ship racing in a different direction. The Council ships moved to pursue. confident in their superior numbers. That confidence lasted exactly 4 minutes. The first human ship, a destroyer called the Defiant, dove toward Jupiter's moon Europa. 3 Council cruisers followed, their weapons charging. At the last possible second, the Defiant pulled up sharply, executing a turn that should have been impossible. The G-forces would have killed most alien species, but the human crew, protected by advanced dampening suits and sheer biological resilience, survived. The 3 Council ships, traveling too fast to change course, slammed into Europa's icy surface. The explosions lit up the moon like fireworks. What in the void? Vrax shouted, watching his display in disbelief. It happened again and again. Human ships used the asteroid belt as cover, disappearing behind rocks before emerging to fire missiles. They dove into Jupiter's radiation field, where Council sensors could not track them properly. They executed maneuvers that violated every rule of safe space combat, and they used weapons the Council had banned centuries ago. Incoming missiles, Vrax's tactical officer screamed. They're nuclear! The Council had outlawed nuclear weapons as barbaric and excessive. No civilized species used them anymore, but humans had never agreed to that law, and their missiles carried fusion warheads that could vaporize a ship in seconds. The Eternal Glory's shields absorbed the first impact, but barely. Vrax felt the deck shake beneath his feet. Return fire. Destroy them all. The battle became chaos. Council ships, designed for orderly combat between fleets in open space, struggled against human guerrilla tactics. The humans fought dirty, attacking from unexpected angles, targeting damaged ships and using the environment as a weapon. Engineer Jae-hyun, aboard the Indomitable, had spent months preparing for this moment. He had retrofitted human ships with experimental railguns that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. These simple weapons punched through advanced energy shields that were designed to stop lasers and plasma, not old-fashioned kinetic projectiles. Target their command ship, Hyunwoo ordered. All available firepower. 6 human ships focused their railguns on the Eternal Glory. Slugs of depleted uranium tore through space at a fraction of light speed. Vrax's shields flickered and failed. The slugs punched through the hull, tearing massive holes in the flagship's side. Shields down, his tactical officer reported. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We're venting atmosphere. Fall back, Vrax ordered, his pride forgotten in the face of survival. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance. But retreating was harder than attacking. Human ships pursued the fleeing Council vessels, firing relentlessly. A Council carrier exploded, its ammunition stores ignited by a railgun strike. A battlecruiser lost its engines and drifted helplessly until 3 human destroyers tore it apart. Commander Tae Yang, coordinating the fleet from his ship, allowed himself a brief smile. They expected us to fight by their rules, he said to his crew. Big mistake, the battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Council fleet limped away, leaving 47 destroyed ships floating in the void. Dozens more were crippled, trailing debris and leaking fluids. Admiral Vrax, his flagship barely functional, could only watch as the humans held their ground. Earth's fleet had paid a price too. 22 ships were gone, their crews dead or captured. The survivors bore scars, hull damage, failing systems, depleted ammunition. But they had won. On the Indomitable's bridge, Hyunwoo slumped in his chair, exhausted. Around him, his crew celebrated, hugging each other and crying with relief. They had survived the impossible. Casualty reports coming in, sir, Sungmi said quietly, her earlier nervousness replaced by grim determination. Over 3,000 dead, twice that many wounded. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. Each number was a person, someone with family and friends and dreams. He would remember them. But he could not mourn yet. This was only the beginning. Send a message to Earth Command, he said. Tell them we held the line, and tell them to prepare. The Council will come back with more ships next time. Yes, sir, Sungmi replied. Then she paused. Sir? Do you think we can win this war? Hyunwoo looked at her, this young officer who had performed brilliantly under fire. I think we can make them regret starting it. Far away in the Council chambers, Vrax stood before the assembly. His body was bandaged, his pride shattered. He had never lost a battle before. The shame burned worse than his physical wounds. What happened? Freth demanded, his voice cold with fury. The humans, Vrax said slowly, fight like nothing I have ever seen. They use tactics that should kill their own crews. They employ weapons we banned as too brutal. They sacrifice themselves willingly to destroy our ships. They are not soldiers. They are what? Vreth pressed. Vrax looked up at the High Chancellor with haunted eyes. They are demons wearing human skin, and I need reinforcements if you expect me to defeat them. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some called for immediate retaliation. Others demanded answers about how a primitive species could defeat their military. A few, like Nethys, sat silently, watching and thinking. Vreth raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke with icy certainty. Assemble the second armada. 500 ships this time. We will crush humanity so thoroughly that no other species will dare defy us again. But across the galaxy, in hidden corners and secret meetings, other species heard about Earth's victory. They heard about the humans who refused to submit, who fought against impossible odds and won. And they began to wonder, if humanity could resist, perhaps they could too. The spark had been lit. Now it would spread. The news traveled faster than any warship could. Across hundreds of worlds, beings gathered around communication screens to watch recordings of the battle. They saw human ships darting through asteroid fields, saw council cruisers exploding, saw Admiral Vrax retreating in defeat. For species that had lived under council rule for generations, it was like watching a myth come to life. On the mining world of Talrix IV, workers stopped their labor to watch. They were Talrix, a species conquered 300 years ago and forced to extract minerals for council worlds. Their overseer, a council enforcer, tried to make them return to work. They refused. For the first time in 3 centuries, they refused. On Vendora Prime, students gathered in underground chambers to discuss what they had seen. The Vendorans were philosophers and artists, a peaceful people who had surrendered their weapons willingly. Now, watching humans fight, they began to question that choice. In the council chambers, High Chancellor Vreth paced like a caged predator. His advisors stood silently, knowing better than to speak when he was angry. How did this happen? Vreth finally said. How did our information leak across the entire galaxy? No one had an answer. The truth was that council control relied on information control. They decided what species could know, what they could see, what they could learn. But someone had broken that control. Someone had made sure every species saw humanity's victory. That someone was Intelligence Officer Hyejin. She worked in the communications division of Earth's military, a quiet position that most people overlooked. But Hyejin understood something important. Wars were not just fought with weapons. They were fought with information, with ideas, with hope. She had taken the battle recordings and spread them everywhere. She had hacked into council communication networks and broadcast humanity's defiance to 1,000 worlds. She had given the oppressed species of the galaxy something they had not had in generations. Inspiration. Now, sitting in her small office aboard a space station, she worked on her next project. She had discovered something while infiltrating council networks. Something that would change everything. Captain Youngsu, she said into her secure communicator, I need you to see this. Youngsu was the leader of Earth's Special Operations Forces, a group of soldiers who specialized in missions no one else could accomplish. He appeared on her screen, his face streaked with camouflage paint. I'm kinda busy, Hyejin, he said. We're about to raid a council supply depot. Forget the depot, she replied. I found something bigger. The council has been suppressing technological development across the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Youngsu went still. What? I found the files, Hyejin continued, her voice shaking with anger. Any species that shows too much innovation, that develops weapons or technology the council sees as threatening, they get eliminated. Not conquered, eliminated. The council destroys entire civilizations to maintain their power. How many? Youngsu asked quietly. 18 species in the last 1,000 years, Hyejin said. All erased from existence. Their worlds burned, their people killed, their history deleted from records. Youngsu's jaw tightened. Send me everything. Ambassador Jiwon needs to see this. Already sent, Hyejin replied. She's broadcasting it now. At that moment, on every council communication channel, Jiwon's message appeared. She stood in front of a camera, her expression calm but her eyes blazing with righteous fury. People of the galaxy, she began. The Galactic Council has lied to you. They claim to maintain peace, but they maintain power through genocide. I am sharing with you files that prove the Council has destroyed 18 civilizations for the crime of being too advanced, too innovative, too free. She paused. letting her words sink in. They will tell you these files are fake. They will tell you I am lying. But ask yourselves, if the Council truly values peace and prosperity, why do they fear progress? Why do they suppress technology? Why do they punish innovation? Humanity refuses to live under this tyranny. We invite any species that values freedom to stand with us. Together, we can build a galaxy where all beings have the right to determine their own future. The message ended, but its impact was immediate. 6 species withdrew from the Council within hours, declaring their independence. 2 more, the Talrics and Venderans, sent secret messages to Earth offering military alliance. Vreth watched G1's broadcast with cold fury. "Find her," he told his security forces. "Bring her to me." But G1 was already gone, evacuated from the Council station by Youngsu's team. They had infiltrated the station disguised as maintenance workers and extracted her before the Council realized what happened. Now Youngsu's special operations teams went to work across the galaxy. They struck Council supply depots, destroying fuel reserves and ammunition stockpiles. They sabotaged communication arrays, making it harder for Council forces to coordinate. They trained resistance fighters from newly independent species in human military tactics. The Council's second armada, 500 ships strong, prepared to launch. But they discovered that 3 of their main supply depots had been destroyed. Fuel supplies were critically low. Replacement parts for ships were missing. The launch had to be delayed. Captain Hyunwoo, meanwhile, did not wait for the Council to come to him. He took his fleet on the offensive, striking military installations deep in Council territory. It was a risky strategy, but it kept the Council off balance. His fleet hit a Council shipyard orbiting the world of Kreth Prime, destroying half-built warships before they could be completed. They raided a Council military academy, not killing the students but leaving a message. Freedom is inevitable. Choose which side you want to be on. The Council's grip on the galaxy began to weaken. Species that had been loyal for centuries started questioning their allegiance. Pirates and raiders, emboldened by the chaos, struck at Council shipping. Internal disputes erupted as different Council members blamed each other for the crisis. Councillor Nethys watched all of this from his chambers. He had voted against the war with humanity from the beginning. Now he sent a secret message to Ambassador G1, offering information about Council military movements. He was taking a terrible risk, but he had seen enough oppression. It was time to choose a side. Aboard the Indomitable, Commander Tae Yang studied tactical displays showing Council fleet movements. "They're gathering ships from across the galaxy," he told Hyunwoo. "The second armada will be massive when it launches." "How long?" Hyunwoo asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4. "Our raids delayed them, but they're adapting." Hyunwoo nodded thoughtfully. 3 weeks to prepare for the largest battle humanity had ever faced. 3 weeks to build more ships, train more crews, and pray it would be enough. "Get me Ambassador G1, he said. "We need to coordinate with our new allies." G1 appeared on his screen, now safely aboard a human cruiser. "Captain," she greeted him. "Ambassador." "I hear you started a revolution." "I shared the truth," she replied. "The galaxy did the rest." "The Council is coming with everything they have," Hyunwoo said seriously. 500 ships, maybe more. "They'll target Earth directly this time." "I know," G1 said. "The Talrics and Venderans are sending their fleets to help. It won't be enough, but it's something." "Every ship matters," Hyunwoo agreed. "But we need more than ships. We need the Council to fracture from within." "I'm working on that," G1 said with a slight smile. "Nethys is feeding us intelligence. Several other councillors are wavering. If we can survive the second armada, the Council might collapse on its own." "That's a big if," Hyunwoo said. "It's the only if we have," G1 replied. They ended the call, both knowing the weight of what was coming. Across the galaxy, pieces were moving into position. Human fleets prepared for battle. Allied species gathered their forces. Resistance movements grew bolder, and the Council, like a wounded beast, prepared to strike back with all its remaining strength. In his chambers, Vreth made his decision. He had tried surgical strikes. He had tried overwhelming force. Nothing worked. The humans were like an infection, spreading their ideas of freedom and resistance everywhere they touched. There was only one solution left. "Prepare the eradication fleet," he told his military commander. "We will not capture Earth, we will not subjugate humanity. We will destroy them completely. Glass their world. Kill every human. Make them an example that will last 10,000 years. High Chancellor, his advisor said hesitantly. That would be genocide. The Council has done it 18 times before, Vreth interrupted coldly. We just hit it better. Humanity will be the 19th. Orders went out across Council space. Every available warship was summoned. Every soldier was called to arms. The Council would throw everything it had at Earth, and when the battle was over, humanity would be nothing but ash and memory. But they had forgotten something important. They had forgotten that humans had spent their entire history facing extinction and surviving anyway. They had forgotten that desperation makes humans dangerous, and they had forgotten that freedom, once tasted, is worth dying for. The eradication fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark tide. 1,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, now surrounded Earth's solar system in a perfect sphere. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. High Chancellor Vreth stood on his new flagship, the Infinite Judgment, and stared at the blue and green planet below. So small, so fragile, soon to be dead. All ships in position, High Chancellor, his tactical officer reported. Good, Vreth said. Begin the extermination. On Earth, alarms screamed across every city, every settlement, every space station. People looked up at the sky, knowing what was coming. Some cried, some prayed. Some simply held their loved ones and waited. President Min Seo stood in the command center beneath Seoul, surrounded by military officers and civilian leaders. She watched the tactical display showing the impossible numbers. 1,000 enemy ships. Earth had managed to build or repair 83 vessels. The Talrics had sent 34 ships. The Vendorans contributed 27. Total, 144 ships against 1,000. Madam President, her chief of staff said quietly, we should evacuate you to the colony on Mars. No, Min Seo said firmly. I stay with my people. If Earth dies, I die with it. She walked to the broadcast station. Cameras focused on her. In seconds, her face would appear on every screen across Earth, Mars, the Moon, and humanity's scattered colonies. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. Today we face extinction. The Galactic Council has sent 1,000 warships to destroy us. They believe overwhelming force will make us surrender. They believe fear will break our will. She paused, meeting the camera's eye. They are wrong. Humanity has faced extinction before. Ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters that should have killed us all. But we survived. We survived because we never gave up. We survived because we would rather die free than live as slaves. Her voice grew stronger. We may die today. Many of us will. But we will die free. And if we fall, we will drag our enemies down with us. We will show the galaxy what it means to be human. We will show them that freedom is worth any price. So stand with me, fight with me, and let our last act be so fierce, so terrible, that the galaxy remembers it for 10,000 years. Let them remember that humanity never surrendered. Not today, not ever. The broadcast ended. Across Earth, people steeled themselves. Soldiers reported to their stations. Civilian vessels, never meant for combat, armed themselves with whatever weapons they could carry. Parents kissed their children goodbye. Lovers embraced one last time. In orbit, Fleet Admiral Bora commanded the defensive forces. She was 73 years old, a veteran of every major conflict in human space history. She had been Hyunwoo's mentor, had trained him when he was just a young pilot. Now she would lead humanity's final stand. All ships, she broadcast to the combined human and allied fleet. This is Admiral Bora. Today we defend not just Earth, but the idea of Earth. We defend the right of all beings to choose their own path. Hold nothing back. Fight with everything you have, and if you must die, die in such a way that songs are sung about you. Captain Hyunwoo aboard the battered Indomitable listened to Bora's words. His ship had survived 2 major battles but bore scars from both. Half his original crew was dead. The ship's systems operated at 60% efficiency. His own body ached from injuries that had not fully healed. None of it mattered now. All hands, he announced to his crew. Battle stations. Prepare for attack run Alpha 9. Commander Tae Yang looked at him in shock. Sir, Alpha 9 is a suicide run. We use it to ram capital ships when all other options are exhausted. All other options are exhausted, Hyunwoo replied calmly. The Council fleet opened fire. 1,000 ships unleashed hell upon Earth's defenders. Space lit up with weapons fire. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy beams carved through the darkness. Earth's orbital platforms returned fire. Massive railguns mounted on satellites sent metal slugs hurtling at enemy ships. Nuclear mines hidden in orbit detonated as Council vessels passed by. Every defense humanity had built over 3 decades activated at once. The Talrix ships, boxy and ugly but surprisingly tough, formed a defensive wall. They absorbed tremendous punishment, their shields flaring brightly with each hit. The Venderan vessels, sleek and fast, darted through the battle like silver fish launching missiles and then retreating. But it was not enough. The numbers were too great. Council ships punched through the defensive perimeter. They targeted military satellites, orbital factories, and space elevators. Earth's infrastructure began to crumble. Multiple breaches in defensive line, Tae-Yang reported. Enemy ships are breaking through. Then we go to them, Hyunwoo said. All ships full attack. Engage at close range. The human fleet surged forward, diving into the Council formation. They abandoned defensive positions, abandoned caution, abandoned everything except the desperate need to hurt their enemies. Ships traded fire at ranges so close that explosions damaged both attacker and defender. Lieutenant Sung-mi, now promoted to lieutenant commander after half the senior officers died, coordinated point defense systems. Incoming planet killer missile, she called out. It's targeting the Pacific Ocean. Impact in 4 minutes. Planet killer missiles were banned weapons that could crack continents and boil oceans. Vreth had brought 12 of them. He would use every single one. Intercept it, Hyunwoo ordered. Sir, we can't intercept it, he shouted. 3 human destroyers broke formation and positioned themselves in the missile's path. They fired everything they had at it. Their weapons chipped away at the missile's armor, slowing it down. Finally, when it became clear they could not destroy it, they did something that shocked even hardened Council warriors. They rammed it. 3 ships, 300 crew members each, deliberately crashed into the missile at full speed. The combined impact triggered the warhead prematurely. The explosion vaporized all 3 destroyers instantly and damaged a dozen nearby ships. But Earth survived. 900 human lives traded for billions. Vreth watched in disbelief. They are insane, he whispered. His tactical officer's voice shook. High Chancellor, they are not fighting to win. They are fighting to take us with them. More planet-killer missiles launched. More human ships intercepted them through ramming attacks. The sacrifice was terrible and magnificent. Each interception meant hundreds dead, but millions saved. Then something impossible happened. Space tore open. New ships emerged from hyperspace. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Vessels unlike anything the Council had seen before, ancient and powerful, built with technologies long forgotten. The Silent Ones had arrived. They were the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, species that had achieved spaceflight before the Council even existed. They had withdrawn from galactic affairs millennia ago, disgusted by the Council's corruption. They lived in hidden systems, rarely seen, almost forgotten. But they had been watching humanity's struggle, and they remembered what it meant to fight for freedom. The Silent One's ships engaged the Council fleet with devastating effect. Their weapons, based on principles the Council could not understand, cut through shields like paper. A single Silent One destroyer could match 3 Council battleships. What is this? Vreth demanded. Where did they come from? High Chancellor, his science officer said in awe. Those are the Silent Ones, the legends were true. They still exist, the tide of battle turned. With the Silent One's help, Earth's forces pushed back. Council ships began to retreat, their formation breaking apart. Vreth's flagship took heavy damage, alarms blaring across the bridge. Fall back, Vreth ordered. All ships retreat to... A human missile struck the Infinite Judgment's command deck. The explosion tore through the bridge, killing Vreth and his senior staff instantly. The Council's leader, the being who had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries, died in fire and vacuum. Leaderless, the Council fleet collapsed. Ships fled in all directions, abandoning formation, abandoning strategy, abandoning everything except survival. The Silent Ones pursued, destroying any vessel that attempted to continue fighting. Aboard the Indomitable, Hyunwoo slumped in his chair, blood running from a wound on his forehead. Around him, his bridge crew looked like they had been through hell. Because they had status report, he managed to say. Tae-Yang's voice was hoarse. 42 of our ships destroyed. 21 severely damaged. Admiral Bora's flagship was hit. She didn't make it, sir. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. Bora. His mentor. His friend. Dead defending Earth as she always said she would. Casualty estimates? He asked. Planetary casualties are still being calculated. Millions at least. Military casualties are over 20,000. The Talrics and Venderans lost more than half their fleets. And the Council? Destroyed or retreating. The Silent Ones are hunting down the survivors. Hyunwoo looked at the view screen where Earth turned slowly in the void. Scarred but alive. Broken but undefeated. Cities were burning. Orbital stations were shattered. But humanity endured. Send a message to all surviving ships, he said quietly. Well done. Earth is safe. Down on the planet, President Minseo emerged from the command bunker. Seoul was damaged but standing. She looked at the sky where pieces of destroyed ships fell like shooting stars. Each streak of light represented lives lost, sacrifice given. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Galactic Council chamber stood empty, its seats gathering dust. 23 species had formally withdrawn. Another 15 had stopped sending representatives. The Council's authority, maintained for 3,000 years, had crumbled in less than half a year. Ambassador Ji-won walked through the abandoned chamber, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She had once sat in that small booth near the back, alone and ignored. Now she stood at the center, where Vreth once commanded absolute obedience. It feels strange, said a voice behind her. She turned to see Counselor Nethys, the small blue-furred being who had voted against the war from the beginning. He was one of the few council members who had stayed, hoping to help build something new. What feels strange? Ji-won asked. All this space, all this power, Nethys replied, gesturing at the empty seats. For so long, this chamber represented inevitable authority. Now it is just a room. Good, Ji-won said simply. Too much power in too few hands always ends badly. They walked together toward the exit. Outside, workers were dismantling the council's symbols, preparing to convert the station into something new. Something better. On Earth, reconstruction continued. Cities were being rebuilt, orbital platforms repaired, ships reconstructed. The scars of war remained visible everywhere, but so did signs of renewal. Gardens grew in bomb craters. Children played in streets that had been battlefields. Life insisted on continuing. Captain Hyunwoo stood at Admiral Bora's memorial, a simple stone monument in the military cemetery. Hundreds of graves surrounded it, each marking someone who died defending Earth. He came here often, usually alone. Admiral, a voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see President Minseo approaching. She looked older than she had 6 months ago, carrying the weight of millions of dead on her shoulders. Madam President, he acknowledged. I wanted to thank you personally, she said, for everything you did. I just followed orders, Hyunwoo replied. Bora was the real hero, she and thousands like her. You survived, Minseo said, and survival takes its own kind of courage, especially when you carry the weight of the fallen. Hyunwoo looked at the memorial again. Every decision I made, people died. I ordered 3 destroyers to ram that planet-killer missile. 900 people. I knew their names, some of them. And because of that decision, 3 billion people lived. Minseo said gently. War requires terrible choices. That is why we should avoid it whenever possible. But when it cannot be avoided, we need people willing to make those choices. She handed him a folder. Ambassador Ji-won is forming a new alliance. The Free Systems Alliance, she calls it. No species rules over another. No enforced hierarchies. Equal voices for all members. Sounds idealistic, Hyunwoo said. It is, Minseo agreed. But idealism backed by strength can change the world. She wants you to command the Joint Defense Fleet. Humans, Talrics, Venderans, and others who choose to join. I'm not a diplomat, Hyunwoo protested. No, you're a warrior who understands why we fight. That is exactly what we need. Hyunwoo considered the offer. Part of him wanted to retire, to find peace after so much violence. But he knew the galaxy was not safe yet. Council remnants still operated, angry and dangerous. Someone needed to protect the fragile new order. I accept, he said finally. Across the galaxy, in the broken remains of Council space, Admiral Vrax stared at the strategic display. He commanded the Restoration Front, a group of die-hard Council loyalists who refused to accept defeat. They operated from hidden bases, launching raids against independent species and human colonies. The humans have made the galaxy weak, Vrax told his officers. They spread chaos and call it freedom. We will restore order one system at a time. But even as he spoke, Vrax knew the truth. The Restoration Front numbered fewer than 100 ships. They could raid and harass, but they could not reclaim what was lost. The galaxy had tasted freedom, and that taste could not be forgotten. Still, he would fight, because he believed in order, in hierarchy, in the old ways, and because pride would not let him surrender. Commander Tae Yang, now captain of his own ship, led the hunt for the Restoration Front. His fleet consisted of human vessels alongside Talrix and Venderan ships. They worked together, learning each other's tactics, building trust through shared struggle. Contact, his tactical officer reported. 3 enemy destroyers raiding the Talrix mining colony on Ferris 9. All ships pursue, Tae Yang ordered. Let's show them that the old ways are dead. The battle was brief but brutal. The Restoration Front ships fought with desperate courage, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. 2 escaped into hyperspace. The 3rd was disabled and boarded. The enemy captain, a Karathi warrior, glared at Tae Yang with hatred. You side with primitives against your own kind, the captain spat. You are not my kind, Tae Yang replied calmly. My kind believe in freedom. You believe in domination. We are nothing alike. Youngsu's special operations teams continued their work, but their mission had changed. Instead of sabotage and raids, they now trained security forces for newly independent species. They taught guerrilla tactics to protect against pirates and warlords. They helped build defenses for vulnerable worlds. In a training facility on Talrix IV, Youngsu watched as Talrix recruits practiced close-quarters combat. They were awkward at first, unused to violence after generations of submission, but they learned quickly, driven by the determination to never be conquered again. You are good teachers, a Talrix instructor said to Youngsu. We had good teachers too, Youngsu replied. Pain and necessity. They teach hard lessons. Intelligence officer Haye Jin worked from a new facility on Earth, coordinating information networks across the Free Systems Alliance. Her work during the war had proven the power of information warfare. Now she used those skills to help allies rather than harm enemies. She tracked Restoration Front movements, identified slavers and pirates, and exposed corruption wherever it appeared. She had become the galaxy's most effective intelligence officer, and she was just getting started. Another Council weapons cache found, she reported to her supervisor. Coordinates transmitted to Captain Hyunwoo's fleet. Good work, her supervisor said. How many is that this month? 17, Hyejin replied. The Council hid resources across hundreds of systems. It will take years to find them all. 10 years passed, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The Free Systems Alliance now included 48 species, with more joining every year. Trade flourished. Technology advanced. Art and culture spread across worlds that had been isolated under Council rule. Earth had become the symbolic heart of the Alliance, though not its ruler. The Alliance capital rotated between member worlds, ensuring no single species dominated. It was messy and inefficient and occasionally frustrating. It was also free. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, watching ships come and go. Human vessels, Talrix freighters, Venderan passenger liners, and craft from dozens of other species created a constant stream of traffic. The scars of war had been repaired, replaced by bustling spaceports and thriving communities. Ambassador Ji-won joined him, now called First Chancellor of the Free Systems Alliance. She looked tired but content, carrying the weight of office with grace. Do you think we have really changed anything? She asked, echoing a question from years ago. Hyunwoo smiled, remembering when she had asked him this before. We showed the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for. That is not nothing. The Restoration Front is almost gone, Ji-won said. Vrax was killed last month in the Battle of Kalos. Only scattered cells remain. There will always be those who prefer domination to freedom, Hyunwoo replied. But they are fewer now, and they are losing. Below them, Earth turned slowly in the void. Cities gleamed on the night side, lights marking human civilization. On the day side, oceans sparkled blue and beautiful. Clouds drifted across continents where billions of people lived, loved, worked, and dreamed. I spoke with a group of students yesterday, Ji-won said. They are 20 years old. They have never known war. They asked me what it was like fighting the Council. What did you tell them? I told them it was terrible and necessary. That war should always be the last option, but sometimes it is the only option. That freedom is not free, but it is priceless. Yunwoo nodded. Good answer. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the peaceful galaxy they had helped create. Ships from 100 worlds traveled freely, no longer needing permission from an oppressive council. Species mixed and mingled, sharing ideas and cultures. Children of different races played together in orbital parks, not seeing differences, only friends. The cost had been terrible. Millions dead. Cities burned. Ships destroyed. Lives shattered. Hyunwoo still saw their faces in his dreams. The people who died following his orders. He always would, but those deaths had meaning. They had bought freedom for billions. They had broken chains that had held the galaxy captive for millennia. They had proven that even the mightiest empire could fall, that even the smallest species could fight back. That tyranny was not inevitable. The council thought humanity's rage would burn out quickly, Hyunwoo said quietly. They were wrong. It became a beacon that lit the way to a new age.